Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Rafael Castañeda. Rafael Castañeda is the Senior Vice President, Strategic Partnerships and Workforce Development at MedCerts. With more than 20 years in the post-secondary arena, Rafael has focused on workforce strategies that build programmatic pathways for unemployed and underemployed students from underserved populations. Before joining MedCerts, Rafael was the Chief Academic Officer and Dean of Education at CBD College, a private 2-year allied health college in Los Angeles. He also served as a Strategy and Innovation Leader for Jobs of the Future, or JFF, crafting connections between post-secondary actors and thought leaders. He is a member of the advisory board of the University of California, Irvine's Customer Experience Program. Rafael has worked with over 2,000 schools and 1,000 workforce organizations and employers on solutions. Well, good afternoon, Rafael. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. And you're very welcome. I appreciate you making the time to jump on this podcast that I love to do just about every day. Sometimes it's not quite, but I love traversing the globe. And today I get to talk to an amazing guest out of California. So thanks again, Rafael. Most appreciated. Let's just jump right in. Rafael, I think it's important we get your story out to our global audience. You have quite the career in post-secondary academia. In operations, strategic partnerships, you were a former dean, and now you're the Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Workforce Development at MedCerts. Could you share with our audience the secret to your career growth and what inspires you?
You know, it feels like it's gone by very quickly. And like all, I guess, somewhat interesting stories, I kind of got into this down the education side almost by accident. And I think one of the things that, I would encourage people to think about when it comes to career growth, and I know that this sounds, probably like something that people hear every day, was like really seek something that you like. Seek something that you enjoy. Nothing is going to be perfect, right? Number one. And so I think that for me, what I've always sought for is, as I've worked my way through the educational space, as I've worked in just about every environment in the post-secondary space. So I started off as an admissions advisor working with non-traditional adult students in an online setting in the early 2000s when no one really thought that this was going to be, a good way to transfer knowledge for people to master competencies and, be able to build their careers off of a learning model like that. And I think when I take a look back at those experiences, whether it was in, a large university like the University of Cincinnati or a very specific like KHEP or AFS accredited, nationally accredited school, working in the healthcare space, ed tech, private, public, 2-year, 4-year, whatever that experience was, I always wanted to go towards something that I was really interested in. And ultimately that just becomes, how do you develop pathways for learners that can go from K to career in a very seamless, transparent way. And I think that that's inspiring. I think when I was coming up, you had these weird disjointed kind of sections of life where you're in K-12 and okay, well, now what do I do after I've graduated? And then after you're in the workforce, okay, do I go to school? Do I not? How does that all work? And what inspires me is when somebody is successful at that and they're able to navigate that successfully through and, hopefully being a part of something like that is really kind of what keeps me going and gets me really excited on a go-forward basis is like, can we make this easier and more transparent from a pathway perspective for learners that are coming through, their K through 12 experience and then on into post-secondary?
That's awesome. And I love that you're really getting this as they're just starting to develop that idea of, gosh, after school, what is life? It's career. What do you do? And most people fall into something happenstance and then they're just like, is this all there is to life? Right. So I appreciate you sharing those perspectives, but also helping get the word out on how we can change that and make this really a happier world. Rafael, switching gears here, we've got a few more questions, but maybe you can tell us what MedCert does and how the company has evolved in the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So MedCerts is a special organization. It started off as, what I would call a mom and pop shop in Livonia, Michigan back in 2009. And, what's interesting about the organization is that it focuses on a very niche specific market, and that's the healthcare space. So MedCerts has 48 different programs in the allied health and health IT space that is exclusively dedicated to helping students train for and ultimately pass certification exams. Meaning that if you're moving into the medical assisting field, you have to go pass an exam. Same thing for pharmacy tech or, phlebotomy or EKG or surgical tech, et cetera. And what MedCerts does is it's got some award-winning programs that allow students to really immerse themselves in a high level of technology. So what you're not going to find in a MedCerts program is a lot of PDFs. You're not going to find a lot of text on white background. LMS experiences. What you're going to find is you're going to find immersive experiences in simulations, immersive experiences in video-based lecture coming from subject matter experts, gamification, very strong competency mastery. And why that's special is because if you think about the healthcare space now, I hear this all the time from large healthcare employers. They say there's this crisis, this frontline shortage. We don't have people to be able to fill these roles. And so MedCerts is very, very proud to be able to have grown, from that mom and pop shop in 2009 to in 2020, joining the Stride Learning family of businesses, really trying to help students that are coming through the K-12 pathway, coming through maybe they're coming out of the military, they're the spouse of somebody from the military, there's somebody that's coming through an American Job Center. They might have found us on Google, or, one of our fastest growing is our employer sponsored model. So employers, upskilling their current employees or seeking new ones and being willing to support and sponsor that tuition. MedCerts is really proud to be able to participate in helping train the next generation of certified talent that's going to be working in the healthcare environment. And it's really, really critical that we get enough people into those roles so that, you, me, our parents, our children are all taken care of by healthcare professionals that are certified in their discipline. So we're really, really happy to be able to do that. And I think, the biggest things that we've seen over the past couple of years is not only the opportunity to do this on a national scale, we've also been able to partner with academic institutions, colleges, and universities, and actually send our graduates to those colleges' degree programs through a prior learning assessment articulated credit pathway, which I think is really great for learners, because if you come in, you get certified, you go work in a frontline role, helping fill these frontline, roles, staffing those so that there's no longer a healthcare crisis. But then when you're ready in a couple of years, take that and transfer that into a degree at the associate's or bachelor's level. And we're just proud that MedCerts is going to be able to, participate in both of those solutions, not only helping when people go into the certified role and fill those frontline roles and work with our citizens, but also at the same time, when they're ready, grow their own careers and maybe continue on to that next stage in their academic journey.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate you sharing some insights and how you're actually scaling this model and partnering with others to really continue your mission. I think it's awesome. Rafael, we're going to switch gears. We're a technology platform. I talk to a lot of technologists, and not all technologists, but we like to understand maybe what technologies that you get into a little bit. So you're leveraging technology in your course delivery. Maybe you could tell us about it and how it makes the training in your frontline medical jobs possible.
Yeah, I think when you think about how programs are designed today, you have pedagogy that's for, child learners, and then you have andragogy that's for adult learners, and really thinking about, if I'm trying to help somebody understand a competency, and I'll use a specific example, Brian, a phlebotomy technician, right? I think you and I would both agree that if we were to go have blood drawn, we would want that to be done by a person who has experience with that syringe and another human being, right? And actually doing that. So, MedCerts technology and the way that we do didactic learning is not designed to replace that experience. It's actually designed to enhance it. So, what we find with our learners at this point is they actually benefit greatly from the simulations, because the technology today actually allows for an augmented, reality, if you will, where if in a simulated environment, I'm testing on a virtual patient and that patient exhibits some sort of pain. And then the technology allows me to understand why that happened. Maybe my degree of entry was too high, or maybe I did something, in terms of the tourniquet being too tight or not tight enough. And so there's lots of feedback inside of those simulations that the learner can simply understand the environment. And then as part of certification, they actually have to go do their pokes and sticks. It's what it's called in the industry, on a live human being in a healthcare setting. So I think technology is a great opportunity to help enhance the learning environment, not necessarily replace it in any way. I'm a bit of a nerd. I would love to see us someday having like a holodeck like you would find on Star Trek, and you wouldn't really know the difference. But until that time, we really want to have the technology and the simulations, the gamifications really help the learner understand and supplement their learning, because they're going to move towards a time where they're doing a residential experience and they're actually testing this and doing these activities on a live human being. So if we can help them understand that, become more confident, become more comfortable with that environment, knowing that if they do get something wrong, gosh, make your mistakes in school, right? This is the perfect time to make mistakes. Learn from them, do better the next time as you get assessed. And then as you go work with real life human beings, I think that confidence level will be, enhanced. And I think that that's a large part of what technology can do for learners. Again, not replace that person-to-person environment, but really just supplement, complement, and enhance it for when it comes down to doing it in the real world.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right, Rafael. I think anytime that technology can bring efficiency or augment, whether it's learning, training, or doing a task, it's absolutely imperative. And we need to get as close as we can. So when it comes time, when they say the rubber meets the road, they're more successful. So thank you. Rafael, last question here. Can you share something from your career experience that might be helpful for those looking to grow their career in either academia or strategy?
Yeah, I think the the number one thing that I've learned, and I was saying this to some high schoolers a couple months back, is nobody has all the answers. There is no one person or company or group that knows everything. And so for me, it's just like trust instincts. Trust your education, trust those around you. Things are going to feel right. They're going to make sense. And 9 times out of 10, if those boxes are checked, you're likely on the right path. I think for me, the number one, true north that you always have to think of is, and anytime you design a strategy or, you think about, how is this going to impact? The number one thing we should always be asking is, what is the learner experience through all of this, right? Is this learner experience going to be enhanced, or is it going to be not enhanced? And if it's not enhanced, then you need to think about why you're doing that. And so for me, keeping that as a true north has always been a really great way to continue to evolve not only how we build programs and launch them, but ultimately what are those outcomes? Because that's really at the end of the day, the most important thing.
Thank you, Rafael. I appreciate that. That's awesome. And again, sharing some invaluable nuggets here with our audience is so appreciative. We are so grateful. Rafael, it was a pleasure having you on today, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Bye for now.